Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast that prepares you for one of life's toughest yet inevitable moments, stepping in when your parents need you most. Hosted by Spade, a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty. We'll dive deep into more than just moving. We're talking smart financial planning, making tough decisions with confidence, and strategies to avoid being caught in crisis mode. Join us for real stories, expert insights, and actionable steps to stay ahead of the curve. Now, here's your host, Spade.
Welcome back to Moving Mom, Downsizing Dad, the podcast where we help Gen Xers navigate life and our aging parents. I'm your host, Spade with Keller Williams Realty. Thank you so much for being here. I know I've been doing a lot of solo episodes in the last few weeks, but the reason I've been doing that is because I want to make sure that the people I'm bringing on the podcast are the best people I can bring you to help you navigate the challenges of your loved ones getting older and all the things that you have to go through when it comes to dealing with that aging process. And if you've been with me for a while, you know my story. I started this podcast telling you about my friend Ellen, who had a fall back in her home last August, the end of last August of 2024. I'm here to tell you, and I'm sad to say, that Ellen passed away this past weekend. And I wanted to have a tribute episode to Ellen to thank her for everything that I've learned over this last year about this journey that I've been on with her and that I've been on with you, and to tell you a little bit about her, because I'm not sure if there's going to be any sort of memorial service for her. And so I thought, why don't we come together and learn about the woman who helped inspire this podcast and helped inspire me to get in touch with people that are helping make a difference in this world. So a little bit about my friend. I met her almost 19 years ago when I first got into real estate, and she was an escrow officer. And I met her when I had my very first listing. So this was when I got to put my sign in the yard for the very first time. I'd helped multiple buyers at this point, but this was the very first time 19 years ago that I got to put a sign in the yard that said for sale by Spade. And it was at 4453 Ohio Street. And I drive by that house all the time. And I tell people if I have clients in the car, I'm like, that's the first house I ever sold. And it's just very exciting. And when I was negotiating the deal, it's typically the listing agent that gets to choose the escrow company. Well, I didn't have an escrow officer at the time. And so I talked to my office mate and she said, you got to call this woman. You got to call her. She's going to handle you. No problem. And so I said, okay, great. And I, again, really didn't know anything about the listing part of what I had to do with the escrow, but I knew a lot about the buyer side. And so my friend, we ended up meeting on the phone. We didn't even talk in person. And back in those days, I had to fax the contract in. So I faxed her the contract. And when it got to the point where she was sending the escrow instructions out to my client, Rebecca, who was elderly at the time, and she was selling her house because she had to move to Santa Cruz for some very personal reasons. Her son was getting out of prison and needed to be paroled in that area. And so she had a big need to sell the house. Well, at the time, Rebecca was not feeling very confident about signing the escrow instructions or the title reports or going to go find a notary to do the deed. So I called my escrow officer and I said, hey, I have a huge favor to ask you. Would you come over to the house and sign the escrow paperwork with my client and the deed and all that stuff? And she said, yeah, of course I'll do it. It's on my way home. Because I learned that her and I actually lived a block away from each other, down the street from each other, my escrow officer and I. So there we sat at the kitchen table. I was at the head of the table. These two were across the table from each other. And my friend was a smoker at the time, and they both lit up cigarettes and they're smoking, right? So the smoke is dancing up through the air in the kitchen, and I was gagging on the other end because I'm not a smoker. But that's the kind of person she was. She went out of her way for people to help them feel comfortable and confident in what they were doing with her in a business setting. Well, over the years, I got to learn a lot more about my friend. We had countless dinners together. She was there for me through breakups. She was there for me through relationships. She and her wife, who was an absolute character, after I'd gone through a really bad breakup in 2015, I decided that I was going to run a half marathon. I just woke up one day and I was like, I was too chubby, I was too chunky, and I needed to do something. So I went and bought a pair of running shoes and decided I'm going to run a half marathon. Well, anyway, I'd been training and training and training and training and training. And one of the things we joked a lot, like we joked a lot, my friend and I. And so one of the things I had learned through my marathon training was that you had to make sure that you went to the bathroom before you started your half marathon, because a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, they kind of lose their caca when they're running. And I was going to make sure that that did not happen to me. And so they made me a funny sign, which you can imagine. And the route that we were running for the San Diego Half Rock and Roll Marathon went past both our houses. And so they made a funny sign for me. I won't go into detail on what it said, but it was pretty funny. And when they saw me running down the street, they lifted up the sign and everybody saw it. And I still have that sign today because it was pretty hilarious. But she was a young, vibrant woman in her early days, and she ran away from home when she was a teenager and ran all the way to New Orleans in the South. And she ended up working at the Crystal Burger in New Orleans, I believe it was, and went to Mississippi and hitchhiked to Mississippi before she was eventually caught by the authorities and brought back to Los Angeles, where she was from. And she told me, she goes, when I turned 18 years old, I got the hell out. And she lived a life of adventure. She raised 2 kids in Northern California, Mendocino. She loved that area. She worked in politics for a while. She lived up and down the coast. She was just a beautiful human being and a beautiful soul. And she would constantly tell me every time we would end a call or we would see each other, I love you, sweet boy. She was just a really good human. And she cared for a lot of people. And she loved a lot of people. And she loved people hard. And at the end, I know it was challenging and a little difficult for her because she wasn't where she wanted to be. But we talked probably about 12 days ago, and she lived in way Northern California at this point. And she said something funny because she was getting short-term memory loss, and she said, let's get together next week for dinner. And I said, oh, okay, let's do that. Let's make a plan. Because if you're dealing with somebody who's got short-term memory loss or memory loss of any kind, and I'm certainly no expert in this, it's just easy to agree to do those types of things. And so, yeah, I'm not entirely sure if there will be a service, but she will be missed. She was a firecracker. She had this kind of ducktail. I don't know if you guys remember the ducktail haircut from like the 90s. She had one that kind of went around the front and down. Her hair was short, maybe just below her ears, and then she had this tail that came down. And it was just so funny. It was just her brand, her signature. It was her brand before having a personal brand was popular. It was just who she was. And I know she affected a lot of people, and she had this infectious laugh that was, you had to laugh with her. But over the years, we've had countless dinners, countless. We've had countless laughs, countless cocktails, and I just really want to say how much I will miss her and how much I appreciate what she has done for me and her friendship. And without what happened in the end of August, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here sharing with you all what I've learned over this time. And she has become friends with many of my clients. We've had many dinners with our clients, and she's been a big supporter of me as a whole. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. And so I just wanted to take this time, this very short podcast, this will not be long, and honor her for the woman that she was. And I just hope that what she and I have been through over the last year helps you all out there and helps you take action with your loved ones, because none of us will make it from this world alive. None of us. But we can make it easier while we're here. And that's what I hope to bring to you, is ways that you can make things easier for you and your family. And you can do that just by listening. And I don't know if this is the last time I'll ever cry on this podcast, but it's certainly the first time. And I just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for being a listener. And do me a favor, just send a little prayer up for my friend and her family, because they're hurting right now. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. Thank you for listening. And I promise we will be bringing back guests. I promise. But until then, take care of each other. Take care of yourself. Go hug your loved one, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. I will see you back next week.